Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today we are diving into something super important in energy and catalysis research. Electrocatalyst synthesis methods. Basically, how do we make nano-sized catalysts that can speed up electrochemical reactions like in fuel cells, water splitting and batteries. So let's break down the 8 most common lab methods. First up is the hydrothermal method. This is one of the most widely used techniques to make nanostructured electrocatalysts, especially metal oxides and metal organic framework. Here's how it works. You take your precursor solution, seal them inside a Teflon-lined autoclave, and then heat it at a very high temperature and high pressure in the presence of water. Because it is hydrothermal method, so we use water. Think of it like a pressure cooker for chemistry. The big advantage is that it's simple and cost effective, and it gives you highly crystalline materials and you get really good control over the morphology and particle size. That's why it's perfect for making specific nanostructures. But there are some limitations. The reaction time is usually very long and you need special high temperature, high pressure equipments. Let's look at the diagram. This is a typical hydrothermal autoclave. On the left, you see the full setup. A stainless steel outer container for safety. The green shows the outer container. Inside that, you have the Teflon beaker where your actual reaction happens. Your precursor solutions and samples go inside here. On the right is a real photo of an autoclave and its parts. The inner Teflon sleeve, the steel jacket, bolt, and the seal. This sealed system is what allows us to reach high temperature above water's boiling point without it evaporating. Next is the solvothermal method. It's almost identical to hydrothermal, but with one key difference. Instead of using water, we use organic solvents. It is because organic solvents are better at dissolving certain precursors. This method is commonly used for making MOFs and hybrid electrocatalysts because it gives better control over the crystal growth. The advantages include better crystal structure, great for porous material and very uniform nanostructures. But the limitations include that the organic solvents are expensive and very toxic, and we use certain purification steps to clean our product. This diagram shows a solvothermal reactor setup for growing materials on a substrate. You have the metal cap and Teflon cap on top for the sealing. Inside the stainless steel autoclave and Teflon liner, you place your substrate on a steel plate and it's immersed in the solution. This is how we grow thin films or nanostructures directly on the electrodes. Such type of synthesis method is known as the in situ synthesis method. Now, let's talk about co-precipitation method. This one is super simple. The idea is you take a solution with multiple metal ions and then you add a precipitating agent like sodium hydroxide or ammonium hydroxide. This causes all the metal ions to come out of the solution at the same time as solid particles. Why do people love it? It's quite simple, low cost and great for large scale applications. You also get good control over the final composition of your material. The downsides include that the particles tend to clump together, that's called agglomeration, and compared to hydrothermal, the crystallinity is usually lower, so you might need an extra heating step. Here's the process. Mix your raw materials to make a solution. Stir it while adding the precipitating agent. Wash the particles to remove any impurities and then dry it to get your final nanoparticles. So super straightforward, which is why it is a favorite in industry. The next one is the sol gel method. It is all about turning a liquid into a solid network. You start with a liquid precursor, it is called a sol. Through chemical reactions, it forms a gel-like network. Then you dry it and calcine it to get your final nanoparticles. The big wins here are high purity and excellent control over composition. It is also great for making porous materials with very high surface area, which is perfect for a catalyst. But it's time consuming and during drying process, the gel can shrink and crack. That's something you have to watch out for. We have already uploaded a full detailed video on the sol gel method on our channel, so if you want the step-by-step procedure, check the link in the description. The diagram explains it perfectly. Start with a solution, then hydrolysis and condensation turns it into a sol. Tiny particles floating in a liquid. Then those particles link up to form a gel, a 3D network. Finally, after drying, you get the zero gel, which is your porous nanoparticle material. Electrodeposition. It is different because you are not making a powder in a beaker. You are depositing the catalyst directly on a conductive surface using electricity. Think of it like electroplating. You apply a voltage and the catalyst material grows right on your electrode. The advantages include it's fast, you get strong adhesion to the substrate, and you have precise control over the thickness, plus no binder is needed here. The limitations include it only works on conductive substrates and getting a perfect uniform coating can be tricky. In this setup you have an anode and a cathode dipped in the electrolyte solution. When you apply power, the catalyst ions move and deposit onto the cathode, which is your substrate. Simple circuit, powerful results. Number 6 is the chemical vapor deposition. It is a gas phase method. You take gaseous precursors, flow them into a furnace, and at high temperature they reacts and decomposes to form a thin pure catalyst on the substrate material. CVD gives you incredibly pure and uniform films. You have excellent control over the thickness and composition. That's why it's used for advanced nanostructures like carbon nanotubes and graphene. But the equipment is quite expensive and you need very high operating temperature. Here's how a CVD furnace looks like. Precursor gases and carrier gas flow in one side. They pass over a heated catalyst inside the quartz. The reaction happens and your product is finally there. Next one is the ball milling method. It is a top-down approach. Instead of building up from atoms, we take bulk material and grind it down. You put your precursor and hard milling balls into a chamber, and the high energy collisions break the particles down to nano size. It is quite simple, scalable and low cost. It is also one of the only ways to make certain alloy nanoparticles. The trade-offs include the milling media can contaminate your sample and you don't get as much control over the final shape and size of the particles. This shows the inside of a ball mill. Material and grinding balls are loaded in. As the chamber rotates, the balls collide with the material and grind it down. The product then comes out of the other side. See this cross section? That's how the grinding media crushes everything. The last one is the Sonochemical method. Here we use ultrasonic waves to make nanoparticles. When ultrasound passes through a liquid, it creates tiny bubbles that rapidly form and collapse. This process is called acoustic cavitation, and it creates extreme local temperatures and pressures that drive the chemical reaction. Benefits include it's very fast, gives uniform dispersion and enhances mixing, but it's hard to scale up to large volumes and you have limited control over particle growth. The setup is pretty simple. You have a power supply connected to a piezoelectric transducer which drives a titanium horn into your reaction mixture. The whole beaker is often kept in a cooling bath because the process generates a lot of heat. So that's it for today. If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel and comment down which method you want us to demonstrate next. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.